Are you looking for a practical little hatchback that has bags of character, is surprisingly good to live with, is great on fuel, and actually I think has pretty cool looking design that is quirky and rather cool? I think it's a really good looking car, and I do think it has a lot to offer a normal motorist that is looking to get a lot of bang for their buck. So let's start. First thing, this is the key for the Peugeot. As you can see, it's quite elegant, lovely, nice flip back key. You unlock it, and the creme de la creme, or the thing that makes this car unique from any other Peugeot in the range, are these electric doors. Check this out. The doors open wide and grant you amazing access into the cabin. Once you're in the cabin, you'll find these buttons here. Now you can press this to close the door. You can also yank on the door and that will close it. So this is what the interior of a 1007 looks like. And first thing that immediately strikes you is the fact that it's extremely spacious. Now I'm a 6-foot man, and the way that this seating is set up, as you can see here, it's almost like a van. So you actually sit upright, similar to a driving position of an SUV. Now this particular model is an automatic mated to this 5-speed semi-auto gearbox, which also allows you to change gears using these paddles. Now the 107 actually comes in both variants, so you can get a manual and an automatic, and you can get engine choices. You can also get a diesel, a petrol, a couple of petrols as well. The most common one that you'll see is probably the 1.4, but in my opinion, don't bother with the 1.4 just because it does not have enough power. Now this car actually does weigh quite a bit, mostly because of the rigid body, and of course the doors, they're quite heavy. So 1.4 actually does seem and feel quite lackluster. Now this particular model is the Dolce, and it's also highlighted on the paperwork as a sport. Now this has a 1.6 litre 8-valve engine producing 107 horsepower, and you might think that's not a lot, and you're absolutely right, it's definitely not a lot. And from a 1.6 unit though, 107 horsepower, it has very good and willing horsepower. Now the French always have run this unit quite a bit, so even though this is a 2005 car, it's still ULEZ compliant and CAS compliant, so it's lovely. And this gearbox, well, what can I say about it apart from it's definitely a gearbox that requires the person to probably get used to it for a bit. It's not a full automatic, it's semi-automatic, so you need to actually dump into neutral and put the handbrake up instead of putting in park. But the great thing about this gearbox is that it's a single clutch gearbox, and it works similar to a manual car. So it just has an auto clutch system which dumps the clutch in itself, so you don't need to do that. Otherwise it's virtually the same thing. Now the great thing about that, although it's not as smooth as a normal automatic gearbox, the maintenance on these is rather easy. They are similar to work on as a manual car, so if the clutch goes out, you go and replace it like you would in a manual car. Now this being the Dolce model, it has everything that this car, all of the options lift, so that makes sense. So it actually comes with audio control on the stalk here, which is really, really lovely. So you can change track, obviously use the computer, and the volume is on here as well. It has automatic wipers. If you just flick this stalk up once, it would actually highlight automatic wiping. It has climate control, it's single zone, and it has electric side mirrors as it's highlighted here. Obviously the doors can be closed using these buttons. You get a leather wrapped steering wheel with this lovely stitching, which does make the car feel a bit more premium. You also get the choice of this rather lovely dual tone seats, which is nice, and this fabric which has like tiny little holes in it, if you can see. That actually does make it quite a lot, quite lovely and comfortable. And the bolsters hold you in place because, again, this is a sport model. The rear room is surprisingly adequate. It's very, very spacious in here. And this is actually quite far further back, so you can actually see from where I'm sitting, in this case, that the leg room is sufficient, and I'm 6 foot, so for somebody, you can see, you could easily get comfortable in. Talking about practicality, this is probably one of the most practical cars I've been in for its size. This is as big as a Super Mini, but inside, of course, it has loads and loads of room, including these trays, and they have these amazing little mats in them, which are velcroed in, which you can change according to your customization preference. You also have this loads of space here, which you could utilize for your, books or CDs or DVDs or whatever you want to put it there. Again, for somebody who really does require a little bit of space in their car, this is fantastic. Another thing that I want to highlight is you do have access to your own glove box, and it has, again, a document holder, card holder there, and it also has all the fuses here, which is really, really good, so you can actually just check things if you needed to. The space in the glove box is, again, adequate. You do get cup holders here and cup holders here. Again, there's a little bit of space here which you can utilize. This button here actually says it's a way to actually switch from automatic mode into manual mode. So you press that, and then you can use the flappy paddles to change gears, which is really, really unique. I absolutely love this car. I mean, it has tons of room. Look how much the ceiling's quite high, so you have a lot of headroom. I mean, in this case, it's literally tons and tons of headroom, which actually makes you think you're driving a bigger vehicle. From the driver's seat, as you can probably tell, it looks like I am indeed driving a van or an SUV because of the height of the vehicle and the driving position. Now, this makes it quite unique to drive on the road, and surprisingly comfortable over bumps. Even though it has a short wheelbase, the car actually is very well settled, and on the motorway I can find myself to cover quite a lot of miles in it. Now, it does rev at 3,500 RPM at 70, so it's not the most refined thing in the world, but it does sit there fairly quiet. And what I find is if you stick around 65, you can actually rev it at 3, which is slightly better, and will also return a phenomenal amount of economy on the fuel that you have put in. Now, you do get a reading light up here, but that's pretty much it. There's no lights in the back, as you can see on the headliner. The rear passengers don't really get a lot, apart from a nice little fold for an armrest, and obviously grab handles. There is a cup holder here as well, which is utilized. Now, the great thing about this car is it's very clever in the way it uses this space. So we'll explore that in a bit. But as we showed you, the electric doors are doddle, and they are fantastic in a tight situation. So if you park in town centre, first of all, this car has phenomenal visibility. So, parking should not be difficult. It's very easy, and due to its size, it's quite handy to be able to take into town and park anywhere. Now, I'm just going to start her up here. As you can see, everything comes up. Can you read this thing? It says auto on top of the neutral. Now, if I press this button, it turns into manual and gets rid of the auto. See? And if you put it back, it goes into auto mode again. This particular example has only done 71,000 miles. It has a lot of kit in it, as I've highlighted. So let's start her up and listen to it. Starts up on the dot. And this particular model comes with auto headlights. Yep, it has automatic headlights. As you can see, the headlights in this case are actually switched off, but the car's put them on because they're automatic headlights. And as I highlighted, if you flick this up once, it says automatic wiping active. What that is basically saying is that the wipers are automatic, so you don't need to bother. So if you keep them on and it rains, the car does the wiping for you. The climate control is very, very good. I mean, for the time I've had this car, you stuck it at 23, and it is rather cold in England these days, between 5 and 6 degrees on average. So keeping that in mind, it does actually work really well, and immediately from as soon as you start the car. One thing that is missing is a temperature gauge, but this car has a light on, so when the light comes on, the car is getting hot. But I have had no other lights come on. This brake light is actually for the handbrake. As you can see, it works perfectly okay. One thing I will say is I'm surprised at how economical this little car is. It's an automatic car, and it does change gears quickly, so you actually get decent economy out of it. I mean, if you can see that, the car has done 32 miles an hour on average speed. It's showing me the date, amount of fuel I have left in miles approximately, and of course it shows me the amount of miles I've covered, which is 343 so far, and it's returned 42.2 miles to the gallon. And to be honest, we haven't really driven this car on the motorway much. Most of this mileage is done in town, so returning 42.2 miles to the gallon is pretty impressive. And I have to say, it's lovely. One thing I will show you once we drive the car is that this gearbox is something that you need to get used to. And if you do have the option and the ability to drive a manual, then I would suggest you get the 1.6 powertrain, because 107 horsepower is required, because the car is, as I said, quite heavy. And the 5-speed gearbox is actually well suited to this car. So I would say that's a perfect marriage. But if you have to choose an automatic, because you have an automatic only license, excuse me, then this is your only choice. Peugeot does not offer a full automatic with this, so you only have this semi-auto gearbox. But as I said, the plus point is, of course, the clutches are easy to replace and it's easier for maintenance. But the bad point is that it doesn't change as smooth, and I'll show you when we're driving the vehicle. And now, as everything is working, one thing that you will notice that this car has 2 rear view mirrors. Now, what is the point in that? One is kind of zoomed in and looking right at the thing. This one is kind of zoomed out, so it's giving you a wider view. It also takes into consideration the corners of the car, so it's kind of like a blind spot mirror, so you can keep an eye out. You also get treated, because of the fact this is a Dolce model, or the Sport as they highlighted, Sport in air quotes. It does get vanity mirrors. They're not lit up, but it's pretty lovely. And realizing that this is an entry-level car, pretty amazing that they have this. Now, this actually is something that came with the car as an option, and this car has it fitted, is the phone holder with the magnetic on it. And if you have a magnetic strip on the back of your phone, you can place it here. It's lovely and out of the way. As I said, with the cup holders, you have one there, and then one over here, which we are using to hold a bottle of water. Now let's see what the space is like in the back. To get access to the back, you actually need to pull back on this lever here, which actually we use to hold the seat belt in place. The reason is because the seat belt actually is quite a bit away from the driver's seat. That's not great. But once you are in here and you close the door, there we go. One thing you notice is just how much room you have in here. I mean, it's not at all bad. There's tons of knee room. It's very, very spacious back here. There's loads of headroom, makes you feel not claustrophobic at all. It's very, very comfortable to be in here. I mean, this is pretty impressive for a Super Mini to have this amount of space in this type of car. It really helps that because this is a box kind of shape, you have loads of shoulder room, you have a decent amount of knee room, and you have a loads of headroom. So it actually feels like you could cover a few miles in it. The seats themselves, they're quite soft and very well supported, and you can also tell from this side this car has ISOFIX points built in right here, so you can actually put a baby seat in should you want to. The boot, obviously, you can sacrifice, you have to make the compromise because of the boot space to have more passenger room, but I think all in all it's very, very lovely and very, very comfortable indeed. Now, as I highlighted, not a lot of things for rear passengers here. They do get their own storage, which is quite impressive. So they have some little bit of room here, which includes a cup holder and some extra bit. It's quite a deep bin, this, so it's really lovely. Alternatively, they have their own armrest and speakers are here as well. So that's pretty awesome. So if you can see that, that's what the bin looks like. Lovely. And obviously the speaker here for the rear passengers. Same story here as well. There we go, the door bin, the cup holder here, and you have your speakers. The grab handle is lovely. Now the great thing about this car, it is 5-star rated on Euro NCAP. So, you know, if you're looking for a little family runabout, this is a really, really good option. As you can hear, it's been running smoothly for a few minutes now. And the great thing is you can actually see on the back of this, if you put this down, this becomes like a tray, like similar to what you get in a plane, and you can actually hold it to strap things down and use it to have a little tray right next to you. I think this category of car could also come under what we like to call microvan. And if you are looking for a microvan, this can be converted into one, because these seats can be taken out completely, which really, really is awesome. But one thing, obviously, with the rear passenger, it has to come out of the car. But I have to say, the amount of room I have to get out is pretty amazing. I mean, all you need to do is grab this handle here, put your feet out, and then obviously you lift up out of the car. And look at that room. To get in and out is quite easy. Now let me show you. Both seats have isofix points on it, so it's really good for if you have children. What I'm going to do now, and by the way, these are where the the electric windows are. So to yank the door, you can actually press this button and it closes it. Alternatively, if you can't, you can just pull on it and it will do it like that. I love these Peugeot sport wheels. They look so lovely. As I was telling you, one compromise that you have to make is, of course, the rear room, the boot space. Now this can actually be modified. So if you have no passengers but have a lot of cargo, press these red tabs and then move the seat forward like that, and now you'll find you have more room. Alternatively, if you wanted to, you can actually pull this lever and take the whole seat unit out itself. I'm making this a micro van, so it really is lovely to and quite practical to have, as I said, if you are looking to get something a bit more spacious. One thing I love about this car is its design. I think it's very, very handsome. I like these lights. They're very, very futuristic. The light itself is a 3-spoke unit and it's lovely. It's beautiful. The dimensions of the car aren't very great, so it's very, very nimble and small and easy to drive. And the 1.6 unit actually returns quite decent economy, as I highlighted. So all in all, not only do you have a car which is good looking, you have a car which is reliable, it's a Peugeot, you have a car that has bags of character, you have a car which is actually quite fun to drive, and you have a car with a unique feature. So this is why I think this has to be a great option for a small family or for people who are trying to get into driving but don't want to drive something mundane. These are reliable and strong. Even in this automatic gearbox, they're actually quite strong. Reliability ratings are great. I'll tell you about the common things that do go wrong in them in a moment. But before we do, I do want to highlight this, that this is an old car now. Okay, so you have to expect certain things with these ones. Now, unfortunately, one thing that all Peugeots really suffer with is lack appeal, and this one is not any different. So this has lack appeal pretty much all over the body. You have to expect that. But I think with a bit of polish and a bit of love, you can actually restore it to quite a decent standard. Now, let's talk about the bad things about this car, because as we know, these are getting up there now. And what should you be aware of? Should you be looking to invest in one? First things first, because the body is heavy, and it is heavy, it often actually suffers with suspension issues. Now, suspension issues aren't that big in this car. The most common ones would be the links, which are on the front end of the suspension. They go, but they're not that hard to replace, and they're quite cheap to buy as well. It'll probably set you about £50 in total to get them sorted. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are going to be carrying passengers all the time and you are going to be driving over bad roads all the time, because of the weight of the vehicle, there's a lot of pressure on the rear coils. So often the rear coils, you will find, are either quite stressed, and sometimes they give way. Again, not a hard job to do. A garage should charge you around 120 to do both sides, or if it's one side they'll probably charge you around £70 or £80 to do so. Obviously it's a rare thing, it doesn't happen a lot, otherwise this car is pretty strong. One thing to keep in mind with this 1.6 litre Peugeot unit, it is 8 valve. That means that it does rev a little bit when you're on the motorway. Also something to keep in mind is, like all Peugeots, it does suffer with the thermostat. So if you find like your 1007 is running hot or is perhaps overheating a little bit, it's most likely the thermostat's on its way out, because that is a really common problem within the Peugeots from this year. But most of the time they run sweet, and as a unit itself and as a car itself is fairly reliable. These electric doors are a massive convenience, especially in tight spaces within supermarket car park and of course town centre. But they are of course electric and they can be temperamental. Now you'll find that often the mechanism itself works perfectly, the car opens and closes. But these here are the electric connections for the door itself, and you can see one's popping out, the rest of them are in. But that's not a problem, that's how it's designed to be. But you'll find that sometimes the car will close the door and then open the door, close the door and then open the door. They would require resetting, and you can do that. Sometimes they need recalibrating and resetting, but you can do that quite easy. Actually, there are loads of videos on YouTube, and all it requires is to lock the car, unlock the car, open the door, press the open door and then close the door, and then obviously close the car off again. Just search up 1007 door reset and you'll see what I'm talking about. Otherwise, these are lovely. Bags of character, pretty handsome to look at, cheap enough to insure and run, and of course one thing they do offer is something unique and rare on the road. They are not common. This car does turn heads. A lot of people look at it because they're confused about what it is, and it is a conversation starter. And I found all the time that I've driven it, it's been lovely, it's been phenomenal on fuel. It's very practical and surprisingly easy to live with. So if you are a small family, as I highlighted, or looking for a first car, or even you are looking for a little microvan, then this is definitely an option. Let's take this out for a drive and I can tell you how it feels. Right, let's take this Peugeot 1007 out for a drive. So let's start her up. So we're going to key in there. We're going to press the brake. Give it a start. Starts first time. Lovely. Right, so I popped it in gear and off we go. As I said, this obviously is mated to a semi-automatic 5-speed gearbox, and what that offers is the ability to drive without obviously pressing the clutch. Now this car, as I highlighted, is very nimble. It's also extremely well proportioned, which means that it's surprisingly easy to park and even easier to live with. When obviously a car is of this size, it makes you think, oh, maybe it probably is going to be horrible over bumps, or perhaps it's going to not be as spacious. But Peugeot 107 actually conquers both of those dilemmas really well. It not only is it extremely spacious, it offers a fantastic amount of equipment and technology in it, making your life easier to live with. Not only that, but I think it's surprisingly spacious, especially for 4 people. Now, one thing you will notice is, because this car is quite a tall vehicle, it's top heavy. So in the corners it does lean and it does pitch a little bit, but that's to be expected because of the size of the vehicle. Now, how can you counter that? Well, you take corners a bit more carefully, obviously watching your speed around side, and I think it's something you would eventually get used to, like I have. After like the 3rd or 4th drive, it becomes very common and you learn to adapt your driving style accordingly. As you can see, we're going over humps, and I'm going over them at speed on purpose so that I can show to you how it feels like to be in a car like this. It absorbs bumps really well. The suspension copes really well over upsetting bumps as well at speed. On the motorway, if you hit a pothole, you'll be surprised at how well the car actually absorbs it. The seats are really soft, so when you are driving and you're going over these bumps and everything, the car actually absorbs them so well, and it doesn't translate into the cabin. So you're actually very, very comfortable over any kind of driving that you are doing. This car is definitely the king of the street in town, because the gearbox loves the fact that you are not accelerating hard, and it changes quickly. So right now I'm doing 20 miles an hour because that's the speed limit on this road, and I'm in third gear, like I would be if I was driving a manual. What that translates into is that I'm revving at about 1.5 RPM, and allows the car to really just not eat any fuel at all for the kind of driving that I am doing. Another thing to notice is that initially the car does actually seem quite big, and it seems like it would be, a bit of a handful to live with. But once you get used to the fact that the dashboard is so far away from the actual driving position, you get used to that. It's all becomes a bit of a doddle, and I mean that in the most obvious sense. It really does become a bit of a doddle. You'll find that any car that is like this, it can offer great practicality and fuel economy and everything. But I find that the Peugeot 107 actually is so interesting that it keeps me entertained even while I'm driving. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. In traffic, this car is lovely. It actually is very, very comfortable, and as I said, because of the fact that it gives you economy most of the time, you don't necessarily feel like you need to worry about spending too much money on fuel. Now this car, as I said, I'm going over this super bumpy road here in Kettering, and it's absorbing it. You can't hear any kind of knocks on the suspension or anything like that at all. It's dealing with it super well. Yes, the cabin is shaking, but when you realize that the car and the the road itself is terrible, then you'll be surprised of how it actually is reacting. Something to keep in mind with the Peugeot 107, as it's a semi-auto gearbox, it doesn't hold uphill. So if you went to a let's say anywhere where if you have a hill and you stopped at the red light, to then lift off, there is a bit of a hesitation from the car, so it actually tends to roll back just a little while it actually finds again the clutch comes into play and the car is moving forward, of course. Now to counter that, how you would do in a real manual car is like you would put your handbrake up and you would actually hold on the handbrake, and then once the car is moving forward you put the handbrake down and the car moves forward. So you can use the same technique here. That's really the only downside of this one, this semi-auto gearbox. Otherwise, it changes fairly smoothly. It does lurch a bit forward when it comes down to the gearbox itself. When it changes gear, it does move forward a little bit, but it's not as intrusive as you would imagine. And it's something that I think you would get used to it, like I have done so. What else can I talk about the driving? Well, I will say this, that the amount of time that you are going to be driving this car is going to be a fair amount, and the cabin is very well insulated, so you don't actually realize that you are driving a car that's entry level. It feels like you're driving something a bit more premium, and that's lovely and perfect. Now, for first car owners, and you are thinking about, okay, and you've told me everything about this car, I really like it, I would like to invest in it, how much is it going to set me back? Well, the good news is that they aren't worth a lot, okay? Like you could get a manual one of these for about £1,200, £1,300. That would be pretty good. And some of them are high mileage examples. You can even perhaps look to get them for around £1,000. The ones that are worth a lot of money would be ones like these ones, which are Dolce or fully loaded, and the fact that they're automatic. But even then, you're looking at maximum in today's market, which is, let's be honest, a bit crazy. You're looking at about 1,800, 1,900 for a decent example like this one, with low mileage on and no issues. Which is all right. This particular model is up for 1,650. And that's the price I'm selling it for. The reason I put it up for that is because I know there's nothing wrong with it, and I think it's a good price and somebody can get a car for a good price. So that's the reason. But I will say, if this is a car that you are looking to invest in, then look no further. There are plenty on Auto Trader, but always go and check the car, take it out for a good drive, like I always have taken all of my cars out on. Make sure you run it for about 20 minutes so that you can tell if the car has got overheating problem. Test the doors more than a few times so that you can be sure that the doors are in good condition. Ask if the car has had any accident damage, because after accident damages, the car tends to actually not work very well, because everything is very compact and put together very carefully. So if nothing works out and if the car has been damaged, then it can be a bit of a pain to find a 1007 without any electrical issues, because of the simple fact that they tend to develop some after the accident itself. So yeah, all in all, a lovely little car. Offers phenomenal economy, a lot of quirk, has bags of character, and above all is an extremely lovely, cost-effective and reliable family car. And I do say it's a family car because if you have little ones, it's perfect for them, with ISOFIX points, has loads of room, and won't break the bank when you own it and maintain it. My personal prediction for this vehicle is it's lovely, and I would highly recommend anyone who is looking to get a super mini with a lot of practicality that offers a lot of features for the money. This is definitely a great option. Again, 1007, surprisingly cool, definitely has bags of character, and at least you can be sure about one thing, that you won't be driving a car that's super common, and it does have that little bit of charm, that French va voom that everybody talks about, and is definitely on my list of cars that you should purchase, granted that they run okay and you've done all the relevant checks. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I really appreciate you taking your time out to look at this video. Like and subscribe for more. Feel free to share it to anyone who's looking to buy this car. If you have any other cars and you're willing to let me drive and review them, please get in touch. And you can do so by commenting on the videos, and I can contact you. I appreciate all of your time, and remember, keep on driving, drivers, and thank you very much for watching Daily Driver UK.